The Godfather is more than just a film. It's a cinematic legend. Yet even the most devoted fans may have missed some of its most powerful secrets hidden behind the scenes. In recent years, cast and crew have come forward with stories of hidden meanings, on-set accidents, and subtle symbols that went unnoticed for decades. These revelations cast a whole new light on the classic saga, changing the way we see The Godfather forever. The stray cat in Vito's lap was unscripted. In the film's iconic opening scene, Don Vito Corleone calmly pets a cat while listening to a supplicant's plea, a perfect image of power with a gentle touch. Surprisingly, that cat was never in the script at all. Director Francis Ford Coppola found a stray cat wandering around Paramount's lot and wordlessly plopped it into Marlon Brando's lap before rolling the camera. Brando, an animal lover, simply went with it, stroking the purring feline as if it had always been part of Vito's world. The spontaneous addition worked better than anyone imagined. The cat gave Vito's menacing character a disarming softness, a symbol of hidden claws beneath the purr. In fact, the little gray tabby purred so loudly that Brando's dialogue had to be looped in later because the mic picked up the racket. What began as an on-the-spot idea became one of the film's most memorable images, perfectly capturing the dual nature of the Godfather, tender on the surface, deadly underneath. It's a moment of movie magic that even seasoned fans might not realize was a happy accident of a wandering cat. Oranges foreshadow every tragic death. Keep your eyes on the fruit bowl. The Godfather uses oranges as a subtle omen of doom. Throughout the trilogy, the appearance of oranges on screen precedes a death or violent attack with uncanny consistency. When Vito Corleone buys oranges from a street vendor, he's ambushed moments later in a hail of bullets, the bright fruit rolling ominously across the pavement. A basket of oranges decorates the dining table just before studio boss Jack Woltz finds his prize racehorse's head in bed. Vito peels an orange in his garden shortly before his fatal heart attack, even popping a piece of peel in his mouth to playfully scare his grandson. An eerie prelude to Vito collapsing among his tomato vines. And in Michael's Sicily scenes, oranges are present around Apollonia right before the car bomb takes her life. The symbolism operates almost subliminally. Against the film's dark color palette, vibrant orange hues flash like a warning light of danger. Was this intentional? Production designer Dean Tavoularis once coyly said the oranges were there just to brighten the set's darkness. But fans have turned the orange theory into legend, a hidden code that, once noticed, cannot be unseen. Coppola essentially weaponized a simple piece of fruit into a cinematic harbinger of death, proving that even produce can serve a chilling storytelling purpose in the world of the Corleones. Luca Brassi's nervous scene was a real accident. The towering hitman Luca Brasi comes off as terrifying until we see him nervously rehearsing a thank you speech to the Don on the wedding day. That awkward scene always felt authentic, and for good reason. It was born from a real on-set blunder. Actor Lenny Montana, a 320-pound ex-wrestler turned actor, was actually so anxious to be acting opposite Marlon Brando that he froze and fumbled his lines during their first take. Brando's imposing presence rattled the newcomer, causing him to botch the scripted greeting. Rather than discard the footage, Coppola turned Montana's nervous flub into cinematic gold. He filmed a new insert of Luca Brasi in the hallway, practicing his greeting aloud, "Don Corleone, I am honored and grateful," and placed it before the botched take in the final edit. This clever fix made it seem like fearsome enforcer Luca is trembling in the Don's presence, a character-building detail that highlights Vito Corleone's aura of power. The truth is that the actor was trembling in Brando's presence. Coppola's quick thinking transformed a mistake into a beloved moment of levity and insight, showing that even a hardened killer gets butterflies when face-to-face with the Godfather. Most fans never realized that Luca's stilted nerves weren't scripted at all. They were real, and they only enriched the legend of Vito's intimidating charisma. A real horse head was used in the bed scene. It's one of the most shocking scenes in film history. Hollywood producer Jack Woltz awakens to the bloody severed head of his prized horse in bed. The horror on actor John Marley's face is painfully real, and here's why. The production used an actual horse's head for the scene, obtained from a slaughterhouse, not a prop. In rehearsals, they practiced with a fake taxidermy head, but when cameras rolled, the genuine article was swapped in to capture the authentic gore and weight. Director Coppola confirmed that no horse was harmed specifically for the film. They sourced an already slaughtered horse's head from a dog food company. The art department found a horse that resembled Woltz's champion stallion, waited for it to be euthanized for rendering, then shipped its head to the set on ice. The first time Marley saw it was in the moment his character discovers it, eliciting a genuine scream of disgust. The visceral realism of that shot horrified audiences, and also animal rights groups, who wrote angry letters until Coppola explained the grisly logistics. To this day, viewers squirm at the thought that it might be real. Indeed, it was. The lifelike terror in that scene stems from old-school practical effects taken to the extreme. It's a gruesome secret that still makes even die-hard fans shudder when they learn the truth behind that silk bedsheet stained with blood. Al Pacino was nearly fired during filming. It's hard to imagine The Godfather without Al Pacino's smoldering performance as Michael Corleone. Yet, incredibly, the studio wanted him gone, almost from day one. Paramount executives were so unhappy with Pacino's early scenes that they tried to fire him multiple times during production. In 1971, Pacino was a little-known stage actor, and the studio had pushed for a bigger star like Robert Redford or Ryan O'Neal to play Michael. Coppola insisted on Pacino's casting, seeing the quiet intensity he could bring. But as filming began, the suits were unconvinced. They watched Pacino's initial dailies, scenes of the soft-spoken war hero Michael, and complained his performance was anemic and too subdued. At 5'7", Pacino even lacked the tall, imposing look they expected. The pressure mounted as studio execs openly discussed replacing him. Pacino himself later recalled hearing that they tried to fire me 3 times during the shoot. Coppola pleaded for patience, knowing Michael's character was a slow burn who wouldn't show his ferocity until later in the story. That faith paid off once they filmed the pivotal scene where Michael murders Sollozzo and McCluskey in the restaurant. Pacino's electrifying intensity in that moment finally shut the doubters up. It saved Pacino's job and secured his legacy. Today, Michael Corleone is one of cinema's most acclaimed roles, a performance almost lost to short-sighted studio panic. This behind-the-scenes drama shows how precarious greatness can be. Al Pacino barely survived the chopping block to become an icon. The studio fought to reject Brando until his wild audition. Marlon Brando's Oscar-winning turn as Don Vito seems fated now, but casting him was an uphill battle. In 1971, Brando was viewed by Paramount as toxic and trouble on set, a fading star more infamous for difficult behavior than for recent hits. The studio flat-out refused to hire him at first. Director Coppola had to push hard and get creative to even give Brando a shot at the role. In a now legendary move, Coppola visited Brando at home one morning and filmed a secret screen test. Brando transformed himself for the camera. He darkened his hair with shoe polish, sagged his jowls by stuffing Kleenex tissues in his cheeks, and perfected a raspy whisper. With that, the aging matinee idol disappeared, and Don Corleone appeared. When Paramount executives saw Brando's improvised makeover, a convincing aging of himself into a mafia patriarch, they were stunned. It changed their minds on the spot and won Brando the part. The Kleenex trick was just for the test, but it proved Brando's commitment. He went on to insist on further physical nuances, a curled lower lip, padded cotton in his mouth during the test, and later a custom dental prosthetic to permanently create that bulldog look. The studio brass, initially so opposed, couldn't deny the power of Brando's audition tape. In the end, the man they wanted to avoid became the film's biggest draw, delivering an immortal performance. It's a revelation to fans that The Godfather almost didn't have Marlon Brando at all, if not for some shoe polish, Kleenex, and Coppola's faith in a Hollywood rebel. Brando's bulldog cheeks came from a secret denture. Marlon Brando's puffed-up cheeks and slurred, jowly voice as Don Vito are instantly recognizable. Many assume the actor stuffed cotton or gauze in his mouth during filming, a long-standing myth. In reality, Brando only used wads of Kleenex for his private screen test. But for the actual shoot, he upgraded to a special dental prosthetic created by makeup artist Dick Smith. This custom mouthpiece sat inside Brando's cheeks, pushing them out to give him the bulldog-like appearance of an aging crime boss. The prosthesis allowed consistency in appearance and speech throughout months of filming, something shoving cotton balls in every day would not. It also freed Brando's hands. He didn't have to worry about spitting out wads of tissue between takes. The lumpy jowls, paired with shoe-polish black hair and expertly applied wrinkles, completely disguised the 47-year-old actor. Brando so inhabited the physicality of Vito that even crew members were astonished at his transformation. The actual denture he wore can now be seen on display at the Museum of the Moving Image in New York, a relic of film history. For decades, fans casually repeated the cotton ball rumor, but the cast and crew eventually set the record straight. The Don Corleone look was meticulously crafted by artists, not a last-minute hack. This attention to detail paid off. Brando's fearsome underbite and mumbled speech became an indelible part of his character. Next time you imitate the Don's voice with puffed cheeks, know that Brando had a bit of secret help from a piece of resin and rubber, molding one of the greatest characters ever put to screen. Marlon Brando insisted on cue cards for every scene. Lines of dialogue in The Godfather often feel natural and spontaneous, and that's partly because Marlon Brando was literally reading many of them on the spot. From early in his career, Brando believed that memorizing lines made performances stale. So on The Godfather, he continued his trademark practice of using cue cards strategically placed around the set. The crew printed out Brando's dialogue in large text and hid the cards just out of frame in each scene. In one shot, a card was taped to a lamp. In another, co-star Robert Duvall stood off camera with Brando's lines pinned to his chest. If you watch Brando's eyes in certain scenes, you might notice he rarely looks far from his fellow actors. That's by design, keeping his sightline near where cue cards might be. Some assumed this was laziness or ego, but Brando argued it helped him remain fresh and in the moment. By not over-rehearsing or memorizing, he could deliver lines as if thinking of them right then, reacting more genuinely to his co-stars. On set, a few questioned the method, until Brando deflected with a joke. When asked why he wanted his lines written out, Brando quipped, "Because I can read them that way," effectively ending the debate. His approach clearly worked. Don Vito's dialogue, from the raspy opening monologue to his tender advice to Michael, feels real, like an old man's musings rather than an actor reciting a script. This peek behind the curtain shows Brando's unconventional genius. The fact that cue cards were scattered around Vito's den and hospital room is a delightful secret that most fans would never suspect while caught up in Brando's mesmerizing performance. Brando wore earplugs to nail active listening. Marlon Brando had another bizarre acting trick up his sleeve that even his co-stars didn't catch at first. Talia Shire, Connie Corleone, revealed that Brando sometimes put plugs of wax or cotton in his ears during scenes so he could barely hear the other actors. Why on earth would he do that? Brando was cultivating what actors call active listening. By partially deafening himself, he had to focus intensely on others' lines, straining to catch the dialogue. This made his reactions seem genuinely thoughtful and in the moment. It's not always when you say your lines that you pay attention. It is listening to all the others around you. Shire explained of Brando's method. With his ears stopped up, Brando's slight delays, his concentrated gazes, the way he cocks his head, all those little behaviors were real responses to trying to listen through muffling wax. It added an absorbing authenticity to scenes like the Mafia Summit or Tom Hagen's briefing, where Vito often sits quietly before responding. Co-stars initially weren't sure why Brando seemed so unreactive until they learned he literally couldn't hear them well on purpose. This unusual technique screwed up some expectations on set, but Brando felt it made him a better Don. It's a subtle detail viewers would never notice, yet it contributes to Don Corleone's gravitas. He appears deep in thought before speaking, as if carefully weighing every word, when in part Brando was just trying to hear the cue. Such stories of Brando's on-set habits, cue cards, earplugs, pranks, cement his legend as an actor who would do anything for a more truthful performance, conventional or not. Brando's on-set pranks surprised everyone. Despite his serious dedication to craft, Marlon Brando was also a notorious jokester on set, constantly looking for ways to lighten the mood. One infamous prank took place during a physically demanding scene when the Don is carried upstairs after being shot. Two background actors were cast as stretcher bearers to haul Brando's weight. Unbeknownst to them, Brando slyly loaded his stretcher with extra weights, making himself far heavier than expected. As cameras rolled, the poor orderlies struggled and huffed, likely wondering why the frail Vito felt like a sack of bricks. Brando maintained a straight face, feigning the limp helplessness of an injured man while probably chuckling inside. The take, with the orderlies genuinely straining, was used in the film, adding realism and a dash of black humor to Vito's hospital evacuation. This wasn't Brando's only gag. Castmates recall him and James Caan engaging in mooning wars on set. At one point, Brando dropped his pants in full view of the crew to get a laugh out of Caan. Caan had earlier driven by and bared his backside out a car window at Brando, and Brando returned the favor right on set. These antics shocked new actors, but ultimately built camaraderie among the ensemble. Brando's pranks could be exasperating, especially for the crew having to lug him upstairs, but they relieved tension during a tough shoot. Fans usually envision Brando as solemn Don Corleone, so it's eye-opening to learn he was something of a class clown when the cameras were off. Even as he created an atmosphere of fear and respect on screen, off-camera, Brando kept everyone on their toes in a very different way, with a mischievous grin and wicked sense of humor. James Caan ad-libbed "Bada Bing" into mob lexicon. Bada bing, an expression that instantly evokes mafia bravado, might never have existed without James Caan. In The Godfather, Caan improvised that now famous phrase during Sonny's speech about how to shoot a rival up close. The script had Sonny telling Michael, "It's not like the army where you shoot from far away. You have to get close and blow their brains out." But Caan, channeling the rapid-fire patter of comedian Don Rickles mixed with a New York wise guy, blurted out, "You gotta get up close, and bada bing, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit." The colorful interjection, "bada bing," was nowhere in Mario Puzo's novel or the screenplay. It was pure Caan, riffing in character, and Coppola wisely left it in. That two-syllable ad-lib added a jolt of authenticity and dark humor to Sonny's persona, a mobster so casual about violence that it's like a punchline. The impact of Caan's improv went far beyond one scene. Bada bing entered pop culture. Mafia figures and TV that followed adopted it as verbal shorthand for swift, violent action. Decades later, The Sopranos even named Tony Soprano's strip club the Bada Bing as an homage. It's incredible to think this ubiquitous phrase was born spontaneously on set. Co-star Gianni Russo Carlo wasn't a fan of Caan's off-script tendencies, especially after Caan got overzealous and actually injured him in a fight scene, but even he would have to admit Bada Bing was a stroke of genius. It's one more example of how The Godfather's cast helped shape the film in ways viewers never realized. An improvised one-liner became a lasting mafia catchphrase, all thanks to James Caan getting a little carried away in the heat of the moment. "Leave the gun, take the cannoli" was improvised. It's hard to imagine The Godfather without the darkly funny line, "Leave the gun, take the cannoli." This iconic quote occurs right after Clemenza and Rocco whack Paulie in the car. Clemenza, Richard S. Castellano, instructs his partner to ditch the murder weapon but grab the pastry dessert from the car seat. The line gets a chuckle even in that grim moment, and it turns out it wasn't in the script at all. The original script only had Clemenza say, "Leave the gun." The added "take the cannoli" was ad-libbed by actor Richard Castellano at the urging of his wife Ardell, who was on set and had suggested it as a character touch. In Puzo's novel, there's no cannoli mentioned in that scene either. It was purely a spontaneous addition during filming. The cast and crew realized immediately that the improvised tag completely fit Clemenza's personality. A mafioso who can mix murder with mundane family priorities, the cannoli was for his wife. As mentioned earlier in a cut bit of dialogue, Coppola laughed and kept the line, cementing a piece of pop culture history. The proof of its brilliance is how often that quote is referenced and parodied to this day. Ironically, Castellano's creativity may have cost him in the long run. Legend says he later demanded script approval for Godfather Part 2, perhaps emboldened by his contribution, which Coppola refused, leading to the Clemenza character being written out of the sequel. But in that moment on the first film, adding a simple line about pastry turned a routine hit into a classic scene. Fans quoting, "Leave the gun, take the cannoli," might never guess it came from an actor's improvisation and not from Puzo or Coppola's pen. A tasty little secret from the making of the movie. Sonny's fight with Carlo got dangerously real. When hot-headed Sonny finds out his brother-in-law Carlo abused Connie, he hunts him down in the street for a ferocious beatdown. The ensuing fight scene is brutal, and it felt brutally real to at least one person involved, the actor playing Carlo, Gianni Russo. James Caan was so committed to making Sonny's rage convincing that he got a bit carried away during filming. In the choreographed brawl, Sonny chases Carlo, throws him into trash cans, and pummels him with a garbage can lid. Caan, in character, deviated from the plan and even hurled a wooden broom handle at Russo, which was not scripted. He then proceeded to unleash a flurry of blows. Russo has stated in interviews that Caan broke 2 of his ribs and chipped his elbow during the fracas. One missed punch famously clears Russo's face by a mile on camera, an apparent continuity goof. But elsewhere, the hits were very real. Off-camera, there was genuine bad blood. Russo claims Caan didn't like him and enjoyed roughing him up, and that the two had long-standing tension. Coppola, for his part, loved the authenticity of the beatdown and kept as much as possible in the final cut. As viewers, we wince at Carlo's injuries. A garbage can lid to the head will do that, not realizing the actor himself took some real damage. It's a behind-the-scenes secret that explains why that fight feels so visceral. The line between acting and reality blurred, fueled by Caan's intensity. In a way, life imitated art. Just as Sonny's fury couldn't be entirely controlled, neither could Caan's. Next time you watch that scene, know that Russo's pain wasn't all pretend, and Caan's primal performance came at a cost beyond what was in the script. Gordon Willis's dark cinematography almost got rejected. One of The Godfather's signature styles is its literally dark look, dim lighting, deep shadows, often only half illuminating a character's face. This bold cinematography choice by Gordon Willis earned him the nickname the Prince of Darkness and created a mood of ominous intimacy. But back in 1971, Paramount executives were initially aghast at how underlit many scenes were. Used to bright Hollywood sets, the studio thought Willis had made the footage too dark and that audiences wouldn't see the actors clearly. In truth, Willis and Coppola were purposefully mirroring the moral darkness of the story. The Corleone world is shadowy, secretive, with light only where necessary. For example, when we first meet Michael at the wedding, his face is in the sun. But as he descends into the mafia life, his face becomes increasingly obscured in shadow in scene after scene. The studio didn't appreciate these artistic reasons at first. They reportedly demanded brighter dailies, complaining that The Godfather looked literally gloomy. Coppola and Willis had to passionately defend the low-light approach, essentially convincing Paramount not to ruin the look by forcing a relighting. Coppola pointed out the dark scenes like Don Corleone's office or the nightclub meeting weren't mistakes. They were intentional, giving the film its striking realism and chiaroscuro effect. Eventually, the execs relented, and the dimly lit aesthetic remained. Audiences ended up loving it. The shadows made the drama feel authentic and weighty. It's fascinating to learn the studio considered meddling with something we now see as genius. If not for the filmmaker's resolve, the haunting visual tone of The Godfather could have been a lot more ordinary. Every fan intuitively feels the power of those shadows. Now you know how close we came to losing them if the studio had gotten its way. The real mafia forced changes to the script. Art imitated life a bit too closely for comfort when it came to the mafia's depiction, so the real mob decided to weigh in. As The Godfather began production in 1970, the Italian-American Civil Rights League, a front organized by mob boss Joe Colombo, launched protests, concerned the film would reinforce negative Italian stereotypes. In particular, they objected to the very words mafia and cosa nostra being used. In an astonishing case of outside influence, the League negotiated with Paramount and actually succeeded in having those terms removed from the script entirely. If you watch closely, you'll notice The Godfather never once says mafia, not a single time. They talk about the family business in euphemisms instead. According to producer Al Ruddy, once the filmmakers agreed to strike that word and a few others, Colombo essentially gave his blessing and even provided some quiet cooperation, though he was later shot and incapacitated during filming. Another mafia-like twist of fate. Additionally, some real mob associates found their way onto the set. Lenny Montana, who played Luca Brasi, was actually a bodyguard for Colombo and was introduced to Coppola through those circles. So the mafia influenced casting too. There were also rumors of extra security needed during the shoot due to crime family interest. Life and art were entangled. A movie about a crime family was being watched over by actual crime family members. In the end, the cooperation smoothed the way, and mobsters reportedly loved the finished film. But it's a jaw-dropping fact that The Godfather had to partly bend to the will of the mob. Fans would never know from the seamless storytelling that, behind the scenes, a real Godfather or two had a say in what could be depicted, making this masterpiece a little piece of mafia history in itself. Thanks for watching. If these revelations surprised you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite hidden detail in the comments. More classic Hollywood secrets are coming soon.